of your legs. Now, your challenge is not what would I rather have happen today, but here's how we'll phrase the question is what's going to make me happier or less happy 1 year from now? So imagine that we are meeting up again on August 3rd, 2020, 365 days from now. And those are your choices. Choice A, choice B. Just about, I would imagine each and every one of us, all 60 of you watching today at home, myself certainly included, we would choose door A. Let me win the lottery. Let me sort of get all that money. But again, the challenge is not what's going to make me feel better now, it's what's going to happen later. And amazingly, there's actually data on those two groups of people, as it turns out, lottery winners and accident victims, people that either have inherited or come across a huge sum of money, or people that use the. So these are the sorts of things that seem to make a really big difference. So we're going to go into a number of these today. I have a question here from Mary that says, could it be that increase or decrease to happiness is one's lifespan? And aren't these sort of the symptoms of happiness rather than the sources of happiness? So actually, so take these one at a time. I'm not positive that I'm getting the question from Mary, if I'm understanding it right, about increasing or decreasing happiness in one's lifespan. What it does seem to be is that actually positive emotional states appear to be causal to longer lifespans. And we'll go into some of the nitty-gritty studies on that in a little bit. That it actually seems to lead to longer lifespans rather than the other way around. And then another great question from Henrietta is, aren't these the symptoms of happiness? Swabs from the inner cheek to look at kind of inflammatory response in the body over time. And they looked at everything from, joy, optimism, but also awe. Awe was one of the 6 positive emotional states that they were looking at. And it turned out of all of the emotions that they examined, awe had the most powerful effect on decreasing inflammation of any of the emotional states that they examined. So a really, really fascinating finding when it comes to inflammation. And Deborah, you said, so far this is awesome, all caps, pun intended. I love bad awe puns, so keep them coming. As long as it's not, this is awful. I won't like that one. Let's see. And then lastly, awe increases dopamine. So dopamine, sort of one of those feel-good practice, that by consciously and deliberately thinking about times when we were struggling, when we were suffering, when we were down on our luck, and then reflecting on where we were then versus where we are now, that can really be a powerful way. So you can do this as a journaling exercise or just a sort of a mental meditation of sorts, but to think about sort of those painful moments in the past and how we might, what allowed us to overcome them, what allowed us to endure, and so forth. I also mentioned Linda Graham earlier, and she writes, she talks about this kind of simple gratitude practice, but I really like it. Inspired by this quote from Einstein, who once said, 100 times a day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life depends on the labors of other people, and that I have to exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I've received and am still receiving.